All right, so, that age-old question, right? Job or business? Something I think we've all wrestled with at some point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It comes up a lot.
Well, you sent over this article, Decoding Jobs, Visas, Business Difference 2024, Detailed Comparison. And it's pretty recent, post August 29th, 2024.
Yep. I wanted to make sure we had up-to-date info.
Exactly. And your goal with this deep dive is to really dissect this whole job versus business thing so you can make some informed choices about your future, right?
Absolutely. There's just so much to consider, and this article really lays it all out.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing that immediately caught my eye in this article was this comparison table that talks about the exponential growth potential in businesses.
Right.
But I've always been more of a, climb the corporate ladder kind of person. So can you help me understand, what does exponential growth actually look like in the real world?
It's a whole different ball game compared to that linear progression you see in most jobs. So think about it this way. With a job, you might get a yearly raise, maybe a promotion every few years. It's steady and predictable.
Right. Yeah.
But in business, that growth, it can just explode.
So less like climbing rungs on a ladder, more like launching a rocket.
Exactly. Think about a company like Spotify. I mean, they started small, but through innovation, smart moves, they've completely transformed how we listen to music. That kind of massive, rapid expansion that's just way harder to pull off when you're working within someone else's company structure.
Okay, I'm starting to see the difference here, but the article also talks about the financial security that comes with jobs, steady paycheck benefits. Businesses seem so much riskier in that regard.
There's definitely a trade-off there. You absolutely have to consider that.
Right.
With jobs, you have that stability, what's hitting your bank account every month. That safety net is there. But with businesses, that's where understanding your risk tolerance becomes really crucial.
So some people are just naturally wired to handle those ups and downs, while others crave that steady ground.
Exactly. Businesses can offer incredible financial rewards, but there's also the very real possibility of income fluctuating, maybe even losing money, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're someone who thrives on predictability, a job might offer more peace of mind.
Now, the article also dives into personal fulfillment and how it really varies from person to person.
That's objective.
But are there any signs or clues we can look for in ourselves to figure out which path might be more fulfilling,
Absolutely. The article touches on this, but let's dig a little deeper.
Okay.
So if you really thrive in structured environments, if you like having clear responsibilities, you value security and stability, then a job might be your happy place. Those clear roles, that steady progression, being part of a larger team, that can be really satisfying for a lot of people.
Right. But what about those of us who, let's say, aren't as comfortable with routine?
Well, that's where that entrepreneurial spirit often kicks in. Yep. If you crave autonomy, love a good challenge, and want to build something from the ground up, then starting a business could be incredibly fulfilling. It's all about that thrill of creation, problem solving, seeing your vision come to life.
So it's less about the what and more about the how we like to work, what drives us.
Exactly. Do you find comfort in stability, or do you get excited by the unknown? It's about figuring out what makes you tick.
I like that. Now, the article mentions transitioning from a job to starting a business, but it doesn't go into a ton of detail.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give someone who's considering making that leap?
Research is absolutely key. You need to understand the market you're entering, who your customers are, who you're up against.
So knowledge is power before taking the plunge. What about the actual skills you need to run a business?
That's crucial, too. Being great at your job doesn't automatically make you a great business owner. Think about things like marketing, finance, sales, customer service, even legal stuff, depending on what you're doing.
Sounds like a whole other skill set to master.
It can be, but there are so many resources out there. Online courses, workshops, mentorships, even just connecting with other entrepreneurs, people who've been there, done that they can offer invaluable insights.
So research planning, skill building. Anything else essential for making that jump?
You absolutely need a solid financial plan. That's non-negotiable. Starting a business often means investing up front, and you might not see profit for a while. Having that financial cushion can make the transition so much smoother, way less stressful.
So don't quit your day job just yet. Have a plan, have a safety net, and then go for it.
Exactly. Calculated risks, my friend, calculated risks.
This is giving me a lot to think about already. What are some other big distinctions between jobs and businesses that we should keep in mind?
One of the biggest is the level of control and flexibility you have. In a job, you're working within a set structure, rules, procedures, a manager, colleagues. It's all about working toward a shared goal. which can be great for people who like that stability and direction.
Right, it takes away a lot of the guesswork. What's expected. You have a team to back you up.
But that structure comes with limitations, too. You might not have much freedom to make your own decisions or pursue your own ideas. You're working within the company's goals, not just your own.
So if you're someone who really craves independence, calling the shots,
Yeah,
that could feel a bit stifling.
absolutely. And that's where businesses offer a completely different experience. As an owner, you have a huge amount of control over your operations, your decisions. You set the vision, develop the strategy, steer the ship.
So it's about being the captain, charting your own course.
Exactly. You have the freedom to experiment, take risks, adjust as needed. That's incredibly empowering for people with that entrepreneurial drive.
But doesn't all that control come with a downside?
It does. It's that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. As a business owner, you're accountable for everything. Success or failure rests on your shoulders.
Wow.
That's a lot of pressure, and it's not for everyone.
So it's not just about freedom and flexibility. It's about being able to handle the pressure and making tough decisions when things get tough.
Precisely. And that ties into another major difference, the level of risk involved. We talked about financial risk, but there's also the risk of failure, something you don't usually have to worry about in a job.
Right, because businesses can fail. And as an employee, even if the company goes under, you can usually get unemployment and find another job.
Exactly. But if your business fails, you're not just losing a job, you're potentially losing a huge investment, both financially and emotionally.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. So higher risk, but also potentially higher reward.
Exactly. Risk averse. A job might be the safer bet, willing to embrace uncertainty and bet on yourself. A business could offer a much greater payoff, both financially and personally.
Okay, so we've got control, flexibility, risk, reward.
Yeah.
What other key differences are we looking at here?
Skill development is often overlooked. In a job, you usually get training that's very specific to your role, workshops, courses, mentorship. You're developing a specialized skill set that's valuable within that industry.
Right, honing in on that specific expertise.
But as a business owner, your learning curve is much steeper and much broader. You're responsible for everything, which means constant learning and adapting. You're wearing all the hats. Marketer, salesperson, accountant, customer service, you name it.
So less specialist, more jack of all trades.
In a way, yes. You need to be comfortable learning new things, quickly applying them across different areas of your business. You need to be resourceful, finding information and advice from all sorts of places.
Sounds like a much more hands-on, self-directed approach to learning.
Absolutely. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's one of the biggest rewards, constantly expanding their knowledge, building new skills, becoming more well-rounded.
Wow, it really is like a crash course in personal and professional development.
It can be.
So we've talked about growth finances, fulfillment control, flexibility, risk skill development, even making that switch from job to business.
Right, lots to consider.
What else should we be thinking about?
This one's often overlooked, the potential social impact you can have. Not that jobs can't have a positive impact, because they absolutely can.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, think about teachers, nurses, social workers, people who are making a difference every single day.
Exactly. But with businesses, there's often a bigger opportunity to create something new, innovative, that benefits a whole community, maybe even the world.
Can you give me an example?
Imagine an entrepreneur who creates a tech solution that reduces pollution, or a business owner who develops a product that improves health and well-being. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
So taking that entrepreneurial spirit and using it to create something that goes beyond just profit.
Exactly. And for many, that sense of purpose, that desire to make a positive impact, is a huge driving force behind starting a business.
It's not just about personal gain, but about contributing to something bigger.
Precisely. Now, I'm not saying every business is going to change the world, but the potential is there.
Yeah, that's an incredible thought.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground, from the nuts and bolts of finance and risk to the more intangible stuff like fulfillment and social impact.
Wrap a bit of everything.
And it's clear there's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
Absolutely. This is about you considering your own values, goals, and circumstances.
So to help our listener really weigh these options, what are some questions they should be asking themselves as they explore these different paths?
One of the most important problems: what do you truly value in your work life? Is it security and stability, or freedom and autonomy? Do you thrive in structure, or do you prefer to forge your own path? Once you know your own values, you can start narrowing down those options.
So getting real honest with ourselves about what we want and need from our careers. What else should our listeners be thinking about?
Think about your financial goals. Are you okay with the risks of starting a business, or do you prefer that steady paycheck?
Oh,
What are your long-term aspirations? Do you want to make a lot of money quickly or build a sustainable income stream?
sounds like a lot of introspection.
It is, but it's worth it. Understanding your own motivations and goals can prevent a lot of headaches later on.
Great point. Any other key questions to consider?
What kind of impact do you want to have on the world? Do you want to contribute to something bigger than yourself, or are you more focused on your own personal and professional growth?
Yeah, thinking about the legacy you want to leave behind.
Exactly. And while that might sound lofty, it's a huge motivator for a lot of entrepreneurs.
We've really dissected this whole job versus business thing today, exploring the differences, the pros and cons, even practical tips for that transition.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
So before we wrap up part one,
Yeah.
what's like the one key takeaway you want our listener to walk away with?
That there's no right or wrong answer.
Um.
It's a deeply personal decision that depends on your own individual values, goals, and situation.
So it's not about the best option. It's about the best option for you.
Exactly. And as you navigate this, be honest with yourself about what you want and need from your work life. Think about finances, risk tolerance, personal fulfillment, and even your desire to make a positive impact on the world.
Those are all fantastic points to ponder. Any final thoughts before we move on?
As you continue to explore these options, remember, the path you choose doesn't have to be permanent. You can always change course. The key is to stay curious, stay open to new possibilities, and never stop learning and growing.
That's a great reminder. We'll pick this back up in part two, where we'll dive even deeper into this decision, exploring specific examples, real-life stories, and practical strategies for making the most of whichever path you choose. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Before we take a moment to reflect, we were talking about some key differences between jobs and businesses. I think it's time we breathe some life into these concepts with some real-world examples.
I love that. Let's put some faces to these ideas.
Right.
I always find that a good story really helps those abstract concepts click into place.
Exactly. So let's start with that idea of exponential growth in business. We talked about like a local bakery expanding, but think about tech startups. They're a perfect illustration of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Companies starting in a garage with a handful of people, and in a few years, they're global giants employing thousands, revolutionizing entire industries.
It's wild. I mean, the tech world is full of those stories, right? A couple of college students building a social media platform in their dorm room.
Yeah.
And boom, suddenly it's connecting millions of people all over the world.
Exactly. That rapid growth, it's driven by innovation, strategic decisions, sometimes even a little bit of luck, but it really highlights the power of entrepreneurship, that potential for businesses to scale in ways that traditional jobs just can't.
Okay, so that's super inspiring, but let's flip the script for a second and talk about the security and stability of jobs.
Okay.
Can you give us an example of someone who finds fulfillment in that more traditional career path?
Absolutely. Think about a teacher who dedicates their life to shaping young minds.
Yeah.
They may not be making a fortune, but they're impacting their students' lives, nurturing a love of learning, preparing them for the future. That's deeply fulfilling for a lot of teachers.
Yeah, there's a real sense of purpose and contribution there,
For sure.
It's not just a paycheck. It's about leaving a positive mark on the world.
Exactly. And you can find that sense of purpose in so many different jobs. Healthcare workers, saving lives, social workers, supporting families, even an accountant, ensuring a company's financial stability. It's about finding what resonates with you.
I love these examples.
Yeah.
It really paints such a clear picture of how fulfillment can take so many different forms.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that transition from a job to starting a business.
Okay.
What does that actually look like? Can you walk us through like a real world scenario?
Sure. Imagine someone who's been working in a corporate marketing department for years.
Okay.
They're good at their job, but they feel like something's missing.
Right.
They have this passion for sustainable living and this dream of launching their own eco-friendly product line.
Okay. Yeah, I can already see the wheels turning.
Right. So instead of just quitting their job and jumping into the unknown, they start small. Evenings and weekends are spent researching the market, developing prototypes, building an online presence. Maybe they take some online courses on entrepreneurship or connect with a mentor in the sustainable business world.
So laying the groundwork while still having that security of their current job, it's a smart way to minimize the risk.
Exactly. And as their business starts gaining traction, they might reduce their work hours to part-time, dedicating more time and energy to their venture. Eventually, if all goes well, they can make the full transition to running their own business.
So it's a gradual process. It's a slow burn rather than a sudden leap.
Exactly. And that approach can make the transition much smoother, both financially and emotionally.
Okay, that's a great example of how to make that transition more manageable. But let's touch on control and flexibility. How do those actually play out differently in jobs versus businesses? Can you give us some concrete examples?
Let's say we have a software engineer working for a big tech company.
Okay.
They might be an amazing coder contributing to cutting-edge projects, but their work is often dictated by deadlines, company priorities, and the overall direction of the organization.
So their creativity is kind of channeled within a specific framework.
Exactly. Now compare that to a freelance web designer who's running their own business. They have the flexibility to choose their clients, set their own hours, and work on projects that align with their interests and values.
Yeah, they have way more autonomy to shape their workday, even their career trajectory.
Exactly. And that can be really appealing for people who value independence and want more control over how they spend their time and energy.
But as we discussed, that freedom often comes with added responsibility.
Right.
Can you illustrate how that plays out in the real world?
Think about a restaurant owner. They might have dreamed of opening their own place for years, envisioning amazing food, a vibrant atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
But the reality of running a restaurant is often way more demanding than that initial dream.
Right. It's more than just creating those delicious menus.
Yeah.
It's managing staff, dealing with suppliers, keeping up with regulations, and of course, making sure the whole thing stays afloat financially.
Exactly. And that's where the weight of responsibility can feel really heavy. Every decision, from the ingredients they source to the staff they hire, directly impacts the success or failure of their business.
So it's a constant balancing act that creativity and passion meets those very real demands of running a business.
Exactly. And while it can be super challenging, it can also be incredibly rewarding. Seeing their vision come to life, building a loyal customer base, contributing to their community, that can bring a sense of satisfaction that's hard to find elsewhere.
It's a trade-off. More control and flexibility often means increased responsibility and pressure. It's about finding what works best for you.
Definitely.
Now, before we move to our final segment, let's circle back to the social impact aspect.
Okay.
Can you give us some more concrete examples of how businesses can really make a positive difference in the world?
Absolutely. Think about companies that are committed to sustainable practices, using recycled materials, reducing their carbon footprint, supporting fair trade.
Yeah.
They're creating products and services people want, but doing it in a way that benefits the planet and its people.
So they're proving that profit and purpose can coexist.
Exactly. And the examples are endless. Companies developing renewable energy technologies, affordable healthcare options, educational resources for underserved communities. They're all using the power of business to address societal needs and create a better world.
Wow. It's about using that entrepreneurial drive to make a real difference.
Precisely. And that's a powerful motivator for a lot of entrepreneurs who want to leave a positive mark on the world.
These examples are truly inspiring. It brings us back to a really fundamental question. What do you want your legacy to be? Do you want to be known for climbing the corporate ladder or for building something that contributes to a greater good?
That's a powerful question to consider. And as we move into our final segment, I encourage our listeners to really keep that question top of mind.
Okay, so we've explored some real-world examples, different perspectives, and the complexities of jobs and businesses.
Yeah.
And I think we're ready to wrap this up and extract some actionable takeaways for our listener.
Sounds good.
Let's move on to our final segment. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into jobs versus businesses. And wow, we've covered a lot of ground, heard some amazing stories.
We have.
And I think we're ready to distill all of this down into some actionable insights for our listener.
Okay.
How do we take all this information and actually make a decision that feels right?
It's true. We've explored a lot, but at the end of the day, this is a personal journey.
Right.
There's no right answer. There's no magic formula. It's really about finding what resonates with you.
Okay, so let's get practical. What are some concrete things our listener can do right now to gain more clarity and start moving in the right direction?
Let's go back to those self-reflection questions we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Find a quiet spot, grab a notebook, and really dig deep. What are your core values? What motivates you? What are your financial goals? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
So step one is all about introspection, really getting to know ourselves better.
Exactly. Once you have a better understanding of your own needs and aspirations, then you can start evaluating your options more objectively.
Okay, so we've done some soul searching. What's next?
Next, let's explore.
Okay.
So if a traditional job feels right, start researching industries and roles that pique your interest. Read articles, connect with people in those fields, maybe even shadow someone for a day to get a feel for what their work life is actually like.
So it's about gathering information, getting a taste of what's out there.
Exactly. And if you're more drawn to entrepreneurship, immerse yourself in that world. Attend networking events, listen to podcasts with successful business owners, read books about starting and running a business. The more you expose yourself to that entrepreneurial landscape, the more clarity you'll gain.
So feed that curiosity and let yourself be inspired by the stories of others.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
If you have a business idea, start small, test it out, get feedback, iterate. You don't have to go all in right away.
Right. Start small, fail, fast, learn, adapt.
Precisely. And remember, it's okay to change your mind along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Your values and goals might evolve, and that's totally normal.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. The most important thing is to choose a path that feels aligned with who you are and what you want to achieve in life.
Okay, so we've talked about self-reflection, exploration, experimentation, even the possibility of changing course. Any other practical tips to help our listener navigate this decision?
Here's one final thought. Don't let fear hold you back.
Okay.
Whether you're considering a new job or launching a business, there are always going to be uncertainties and challenges. But you know what? Growth and fulfillment often lie outside of our comfort zones.
So embrace the unknown, take calculated risks, and trust the journey.
Exactly. And as you move forward, remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Seek out mentors, connect with like-minded individuals, build a support system that can guide and encourage you along the way.
That's such an important reminder. Yeah, we're all in this together. Well, I think we've covered just about everything. Any final words of wisdom for our listener before we sign off?
As you continue to explore these paths, I want you to remember to focus not just on the financial aspects,
Okay.
but also on the impact each path could have on your lifestyle, your personal growth, even your contribution to the world. It's about finding a path that aligns with your values, that fuels your passions, and allows you to live a life that feels both meaningful and fulfilling.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
So whether you're drawn to the stability of a job, the freedom of entrepreneurship, or something in between, remember that the most important thing is to choose a path that feels authentically enough.
And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, your ideal path will involve both a job and a business, blending the best of both worlds. The possibilities are endless as long as you stay curious, stay open, and stay true to yourself.
Love it. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.